So this week I don't have a box to take these out of. Basically, I had somebody at work who could use them. So we're going to do this in a slightly different fashion. Before we begin with these anime, though, we'll begin with non-anime additions to the collection. We've got Snatch for the movie party this coming weekend. I don't know if this is a good addition or not. We got The Last Man on Earth. I chose this one because it looks like it has both the color version and the black and white version. And since I think I want to watch the black and white version, but it could be interesting to see how the colorization might look like afterwards. I got Charleston Heston and the Omega Man. And I got Will Smith's I Am Legend. If you don't know what these have in common, I do believe they're all three based on the same either short story or novel or something that would be I Am Legend. Of course, the Will Smith one was the only one actually called that. And so, when we begin with the anime, let's turn these pile upside down and just go through the order. Because the new releases will end up on the top. First up, we have Toriko, which, if I'm understanding from the advertisements right, it's rather amusing. There's been I remember back when I was posting on Slashdot more often, when a common joke would be, how does it taste, as in, like, I see. So this is where the loose plastic is. Yeah, here we go. The tab that was right here that was holding this in place. That's unfortunate. Well, the joke is, you see an animal and you're like, oh, people have never seen this animal before. So, first important question is, how does it taste? And I almost wonder if this anime looks like it's based on that concept, almost. There's a bunch of dangerous rare animals, and it says here, eating what you defeat, mouth-wateringly lethal ingredients, etc., etc. So, I have to admit, it sounds abusing. We got here the Shakugan no Shana S OVA series. Comes in one of Funimation's Blu-ray to DVD resizers. And then here in the little Blu-ray case on the inside, we have plastic. We have Blu-ray version here and DVD version here. More artwork on the inside. And more Shakugan no Shana. And according to this, it comes with even more animated episodes, so I'm going to catch up on those, especially since Shakugan no Shana the movie, which I believe is a retelling of the either first story or the first well, I think it retells some part of the first season, and I haven't watched it yet to find out, and I could be completely mistaken. I plan to watch it and, well, verify one way or the other. And, like I mentioned, there's all these mini episodes of Shakugan no Shana stuff that this one didn't come with the Funimation insert. Well, that's interesting. And there's a nice picture. See, that's why I think it's a retelling of the first story arc of the first episode. Because I get the impression that's what it's supposed to be. I'm looking forward to seeing how it looks. Next up, we got Pokemon Black and White Collection 2. Not much to comment about. Next up, Saiyuki Gaiden. This would be related to the Saiyuki anime before. And there's something noteworthy about this one. I've noted before that when Sentai Filmworks releases something DVD only, they tend not to dub it. But if I look here, there is quite clearly an English dub in the lower right corner. And I don't think there's a Blu-ray version of this out there. If there is, I missed it. But it's interesting that a little bit more of that series has come out. Speaking of more of another series coming out, we got Blood C, the latest installment in the Blood franchise. I'm just reading the text right there. And I don't know what to think about this, because I need to watch a bit of it first. But before I do that, this is the complete series, and you got DVD on one side and Blu-ray on the other. Looks like 12 episodes. So let's see. This is what the back looks like behind this. In the DVD case, first of all, I'm making sure it looks like this is kind of one big picture with a little spine to it. We've got our 2 DVD discs. There's a bit of artwork there, but it's really dark, hard to see in this lighting. And then we got this, which, as you can see from down there, is a little continuation of that. This would be the Blu-ray version. Looks like the same dark pattern on the inside. Now I wonder, there's this part of me that always wants to save those, just like that. And just like that, I did it. Next up, we've got Bodacious Space Pirates on DVD. The Blu-ray version was released last week, and this one was delayed. Was it last week? Now that I say that, I don't remember. I think it was. Oh, we got our 3 discs. Still a couple more. These are not new releases. This would be Ocean Waves, which is I guess it's not exactly classified as a movie, but it is about 72 minutes in length, I think. Yeah, right there. 72 minutes. And it is made by Studio Ghibli, I believe. This DVD I imported from Japan because I kind of want to watch this. It's got English subtitles, so I have to admit I'm curious. But don't worry, I didn't just buy that, because I also got Only Yesterday, which has never been released here in the US before, so there is a chance it might not get released here with Disney's latest things. We'll have to find out. But I got it because it has English subtitles as well. This is what the Studio Ghibli Blu-ray releases are looking like in Japan. I can feel that there's a subtle magnetic force holding it shut. Very neat. And I've confirmed both of those have English subtitles. And then finally is one that I've been pushing off, which is Time of Eve. And this one I've also confirmed has English subtitles. And confirmed, I mean, not just I read somewhere. For me, it's I imported this exact version and put it into my Blu-ray player and verified I got. So this is a very interesting thing here where you can see there's faces, and then you got text that seems to be mostly like an invertible cover, and then there's these, which all look like invertible covers. So this thing came with so I guess it came with 4 sheets for a total of 8 potential covers. I have no clue why somebody would need that many. Maybe I will once I watch the anime. We'll have to see. I've actually had it for a while and been a bit lazy. Oh well. So, there we go. That's all of this week's new anime DVDs. Okay, I guess this has been a strange week. I'm trying to understand where all the time went, but I guess I ended up not watching a whole lot of anime. I didn't watch anything new as far as I can tell, but I did rewatch 3 things. So, first up on those lists is Children Who Chase Voices from Deep Below, which I think was just released here as Children Who Chase Lost Voices, but I rewatched that, partially with a friend, partially also to watch the dub, and I guess because the first movie didn't really grasp me in a way where I felt super attached to the characters, I didn't find the change from Japanese with English sub to dub to be all that bad. I guess I just didn't really think about it a whole lot while rewatching it. Rewatching the contents of the movie, I think it's about what I felt last time, where it's a bunch of. It's got some interesting imagery to it, but that's very reminiscent of Studio Ghibli. In fact, I could swear some of the character designs are either from Studio Ghibli character designers or people who worked on them or people really inspired by them. I'm not sure. And but you can definitely feel some of that influence in there. And that seems to be the most interesting thing because the director Makoto Shinkai is well known for doing pieces more his own. I mean, this one has some of his color schemes and scenery imagery, which is something that Studio Ghibli obviously doesn't do. But there's other things Ghibli does that he doesn't. Blah 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 blah. The basic idea being that this movie's interesting because even though it's still got some of that same imagery in it, there's a kind of different different direction it is for the director specifically. In particular, kind of a less romantic observational approach. And I say that in that, like, Voices of a Distant Star, Place Promised in Our Early Days, and 5 centimeters per second are not just about romance, but are kind of about the characters understanding their thoughts and feelings on it, sort of. Whereas this one was a bit more of an adventure where, if there's romance going on, it's a very Ghibli-esque romance. And so it's just something that kind of unfolds because the characters interact the way they do. If that makes sense. Although at the same time, I don't think it's really all that strong of an element if it is there. Yeah, it's a very strange movie. Let's see. Another one I also rewatched Origin Spirits of the Past. And it's very interesting rewatching this one because I think I understand a bit better why I was pretty mad the first time I watched it. And that's because of the third act and most of the fourth, I guess. Basically, I've always really liked the Funimation trailer for Origin Spirits of the Past. I've always thought it's much more spectacular. I guess the reason for that is because it does a really legitimate job of getting at least me excited for the anime. And so, watching the anime again, kind of knowing all this back and forth, I think I understand why. It's because the first half of the movie is actually really quite compelling. I mean, I rewatched it and I'm like, yeah, that's some powerful imagery and that's some very intriguing dialogue and character interaction. I think I'm actually appreciating it. And the problem that happens in the second half comes... Well, I guess I don't want to spoil that, but it's a neat idea, but kind of even more far-fetched than the basic premise of the movie, I thought. In addition, I felt like the movie didn't give us as much of a reason for our main two characters to kind of feel as driven as they were towards their respective goals. Where basically, it kind of felt like somebody was moving around chess pieces on a chessboard for you instead of allowing you to play a game of chess. It feels kind of like it's trying to tell you what to think, and that, yeah, forest is good, industry is bad. And you can kind of feel that manipulation in there, and I think I picked up on that and this kind of slipping in the second half. Now, I say that because having rewatched it and watched the conclusion of it, I could see how there's actually bits and pieces of something that would have been as spectacular as the trailer for the movie would have had me thinking it would. There was just something about that second half that acted slightly wrong because the things they did for the ending actually suggested some neat things. It's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting simply because there's a lot of things like this sometimes when you watch something a second time where, like in Poila Magi Madoka Magica, when, that's actually pretty spoilerific, so I guess I'm not going to talk about that. But let's say that on the very last episode, a character said something that I thought the series was building up to being this really excellent, super awesome, very thought-provoking thing, and then it sounded kind of dull, and I didn't care as much about it until I rewatched it again and had a chance to think about the ramifications of what that character had said. Where upon a second viewing, I realized it was actually a pretty powerful thing. So that's a kind of interesting example of Poila Magi Madoka Magica slipping just a little bit at the very end, but its ending was still pretty secure and solid. Origin was kind of secure, solid. And so I guess all of the talk about Origin comes back to something else I compared it to back, which is King of Thorn, which I've seen a couple of times, once because I watched it on my own and once because I had a friend who was interested. And it's interesting how there's a trade-off there, where King of Thorn kind of had an idea of not trying to be manipulative and had a better idea of what kind of twist to try and throw at us, the viewer, that were very legitimately interesting twists. But it also kind of suffers an execution problem where Origin Spirits of the Past, like I said, had that really powerful imagery and very interesting character dynamics at the very beginning, which were definitely not as strong in King of Thorns. So it's a kind of interesting trade-off, and at this point, well, I don't know. It made me think, and then I had programming stuff to do, so I stopped thinking about that. And then the final thing I rewatched is the first 14 episodes of Brigadoon. Now, I don't know if anybody watching my video has heard of it, but Brigadoon is kind of a really strange series. I'm going to be completely open and honest and say it is weird. But maybe because of that weirdness, maybe the contrast it sets up, I don't know. But it remains a fairly compelling tale in my opinion. I don't think everybody thinks this about it, but if I had to describe, it almost seems like firing up something like Pokemon or Digimon at first, maybe with a slightly more perverted sense of humor than those. And I'm pretty sure if I thought hard enough, I could think of other examples of series more like that I'm aiming for. But the trick about Brigadoon is it kind of sets up that mold in order to break it. There's somebody I saw who, discovered Brigadoon not too long after I did and started posting in a couple of forums, talking about it. And I'm like, yeah, here's another person that really appreciates this interestingly strange but somehow wonderful anime. And they were kind of saying the same things. I think one of the things they said about it in a review for it was about how it's kind of hard to categorize because it kind of intentionally plays with that. I'm not sure, but all I know is it surprised me. I watched one DVD. I picked up one DVD, and I think it was Real About High School, perhaps. And there's not a whole lot of Tokyo Pop DVD releases, so obviously it's going to be one of the handful of those. But on one of them, I saw a preview for Brigadoon. I'm like, I thought I had seen that for sale at the used anime DVD shop, or at least the first DVD of it, and I was I had overlooked it, passed it up while fingering through to decide what to buy, because it kind of looked like that sort of show. And it still kind of did from the previews, I thought, but I saw some things that made me more interested. In particular, Melon Blue had a pretty interesting character design that seemed kind of reminiscent of Mega Man, you got this neat face visor locking thing and wings and I could give that a shot. And so I bought that DVD and I put it in, and it was definitely my opinion first firing up that yeah, I see it's one of those kind of series. Okay. And then it's very quickly started being something completely unexpected. And by the end of the first DVD, the end of that 5th episode, I'm like, oh my god, I've got to buy the rest of this series. This thing's playing with my mind. And none of the local stores had it, so I had to order them all online, I think. And then I worked from home the day they came, and I watched them all, and it was so fun. Blah, blah, blah. So, interesting history on Brigadoon there, I guess. What does that mean to y'all? I don't know. Because there's an aspect of Brigadoon that could be influenced by my having grown up watching Unico and the Island of Magic, because there is a similar sort of undercurrent of menace with a very sweet looking top. And I'm not talking about this in like comparison to what is it, Magical Witch Puni-chan, which is kind of less menacing under the surface and more hilariously evil, I guess. The difference being that you kind of feel like you got characters from a kind of simpler world feeling something really evil, clawing at the world from underneath, sort of. Some sort of under the covers maliciousness. In the case of Unico and the Island of Magic, this was, oh yeah, happy Unico makes friends with things, and there's a wizard that's turning people into stone, and he's a being made of pure hatred that acts like a really creepy thing that apparently has a lot of psychological issues to get through before he could even possibly be defeated or whatnot. But, there's still a kind of element to that that's kind of menacing. And since I grew up on that, that's the sort of thing that isn't just like, that's the sort of thing that developed what sort of stories I like. And so then it makes perfect sense that Brigadoon, which is this concept times 100 or 1,000 or something like that, would probably trigger that a whole lot more. I don't know. It's something to think about, and, there's a lot of things sort of similar. I mean, I don't really care about the more visual Studio Ghibli titles, for example. Things like My Neighbor Totoro, I was kind of, it's interesting to watch. But I grew up on Nausicaa, the Valley of the Wind, so I kind of like my Ghibli stories when they're trying to tell us a story, instead of when they're trying to show us some interesting visuals, emotions, feelings, I think. And then there's interesting Ghibli ones that kind of mix the two together, like Spirited Away. But I don't know. Lots of stuff to think about. It's been an okay week for figuring all this stuff out, but chances are, if I don't reach a stopping point in this programming project, I could risk not watching more. Although, there's a lot of good stuff here in order to watch, so I'll try and get on top of those, I guess. Other than that, next month I pre-ordered stuff, and while the first half of the month isn't all that spectacular, that second half of the month is a real killer, and you have Aniplex to thank for that. But I still plan to get all those, so there we go. I can't think of anything else for this week, so y'all have a nice week.